It's official. The California Reparations Task Force has finally made a decision concerning reparations. The task force is recommending California state legislators award up to $1.2 million to the descendants of American slaves. Let's get into it. This article is coming from Fox News. I chose them because, I just had to go with the opposition for today's briefing. The headline reads, California Reparations Panel approves payments of up to $1.2 million to every black resident. And that's a bit of a misnomer. We're going to get into that later in today's broadcast. Let's check out this article. Reparations are not only morally justifiable, but they have the potential to address long-standing racial disparities and inequalities. This is a quote coming from the Representative Barbara Lee, the Democrat from California. She said this after attending the meeting. The panel's recommendation breaks payments down by types of historical discrimination. For example, black residents affected by redlining by banks would receive $3,366 for each year they lived in California from the early 1930s to the late 1970s, amounting to up to $149,000. That's a substantial amount of money. This money would be targeted to the older generation, but if they were to receive it, they would be able to pass that down to the next of kin, to their sons and daughters, creating generational wealth. This is a huge opportunity. California is the first state to pass something like this or to recommend something like this, but it has not yet passed state legislature. We're going to have to get into the realistic aspect of that conversation soon. But let's just check out a little bit more of this article before we talk about the next steps. Black residents could receive roughly $2,352 in compensation for over-policing and mass incarceration for each year lived in California between 1970 and 2020. Those payments could amount to roughly $115,000. Now listen, everybody is not happy to hear about these changes. Everybody is not excited to see justice being served to the African American community. Check this out. Basehead Robert Malone, MD, the man responsible for bringing you the jab, tweeted this: every person not of color living in California needs to get out now. Bye-bye, good riddance. About $1.2 million in reparations is now approved by a California task force, still to be voted on by the state legislation, to each black person in the state. This will not only bankrupt the state, but will force homeowners to sell their property to pay the huge tax increases that may be coming. California already charges almost 20% per person, including sales tax, the highest tax rates in the country. So if this guy gets his way, property in California is going to be more than available. There should be no more homeless crisis in California if you let this guy get his way. By the way, activists are demanding higher amounts. They want $200 million per person. That's fake news. This is the face of modern socialism, and we all need to be very scared. That's right. People are fearful. These folks are scared. They see the momentum. At first, when people were talking about reparations, it was all a joke. People were trolling. Oh, you'll never get reparations. Oh, it'll never happen. Oh, give up. You're just talking. You'll never get reparations. Now that they see we're getting momentum, now that they see politicians, presidential candidates, task force, state legislators, Democratic representatives are all talking about this issue and taking it seriously, now they're starting to get scared. Now they're realizing, wait, this thing could actually happen. But before we get our hopes too high, let me tell you about some real hurdles that we still need to overcome. So first off, and most glaring, is the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause, which prevents U.S. government from passing legislation that would discriminate based on race. For reparations to have any chance of passing judicial scrutiny, it is vitally important that reparations be passed based on lineage to the descendants of slavery. This must be a lineage-based reparations package and cannot be a racial package. This reparations package cannot be divvied out to Black Americans or Black Californians, or it will be overturned immediately by any judicial oversight. The only chance that reparations has is if it is based on lineage, which would pass or could pass 14th Amendment scrutiny. So as it's written, or as it's suggested, that any Black Californian resident can qualify for reparations based on redlining practices and discrimination by police officers, I think it's borderline, it's kind of dangerous. I don't think it's clear-cut enough. It must be very clear that this is not a reparations package to repair harm from racial or racism. Reparations is not a cure to racism. Reparations is repairing the harm caused by slavery. It's important that that distinction be made. Otherwise, people from all types of groups can start to infiltrate it and end up benefiting from what should be targeted to us. The same thing happened for affirmative action. Affirmative action was supposed to be for Black Americans, but then under the affirmative action legislation, it was targeted to minorities. So then who qualifies as a minority? Asians, Hispanics, immigrant Africans, and immigrant Pacific Islanders, immigrant, Caribbeans, as well as white women. So just like affirmative actions is largely useless to Black Americans, especially Black American men, reparations would be useless to Black American men, Black Americans in general, if all Black people or all people who suffered from racism were to qualify for it. No, it has to be very specific and only provide to and for the descendants of slaves, Black American descendants of slaves. Now, keep in mind that affirmative action is right now under judicial scrutiny from the Supreme Court. It's very likely that affirmative action will be canceled in the summer of 2023. So with that being said, it's important to keep an eye on this reparations movement, as it may be the only option to replace affirmative action if and when the Supreme Court overrules or overturns affirmative action. And in the case which is arguing against affirmative action, it's being already discussed, the fact that reparations may hinge on the fact that it is lineage-based instead of racially based. So it's very important to understand the key difference between lineage and race. With that being said, I think that it is still a major step forward that the California Task Force has made recommendations and approves a package for reparations. I think it's a step in the right direction, and it's important that all hands on deck right now, especially Black Americans, foundational Black Americans, but even just anybody who's interested in justice, anybody who's interested in putting Black Americans, foundational Black Americans, the people who found the foundation of the country, the people who built the country from scratch, who were here since the beginning, who fought in every war. If you want to give us an equal playing field, a level playing field, it's important that you keep your eyes on this movement. Peace. So you made it all the way to the end of the video, but you haven't hit the like button yet. Come on now. You're cheating me, you're cheating yourself. Go ahead, hit the like button. And while you're at it, you might as well smash the subscribe button so you can get notifications every time I drop a video. I make a video every day, a different topic, a different subject. They're all interesting, so you can check them all out by hitting the subscribe button and setting your notifications to all so you get an alert when I drop a video. There you go.